Welcome to the DreamHack Download, everything gaming in one talk show. I'm your host Kyle, and today I'm joined by my co-host Alex and two members of the National Video Game Museum, Joe and Mikey. And today they're going to tell us a little bit about what it's like to be preserving video games. Joe, Mikey, thank you for being here, and I'd like to learn a little bit more about the National Video Game Museum, so if, Joe, you'd be able to start us off, that'd be great.
Oh, I'd love to. The National Video Game Museum is it's a kind of cultural centre and obviously a haven for everything video games in cultures, and especially in the UK. That's where we're based. We have certain sections that we like to have called bundles, which is one of the things that I'll always kind of push people towards, which is very themed sections of games where they make you focus on a mechanic. Obviously, the mechanic being the most important part of that, and get you to think of it through different angles and experience it in different ways. I'm sure Mikey could add to this, so I'll look at him.
We started off in 2015. We were called the National Video Game Arcade, and we were based in Nottingham, which is actually quite apt for the discussion we're going to be having later. But in 2018, the organisation moved to Sheffield, and that's been our home ever since. I think what Joe's describing there with the bundles is really interesting because we're sort of allowing ourselves to sort of creatively display and interpret games. And one of the exhibitions I think we did a couple of years ago involved Donkey Kong. And we had, was it Screen 16? Was that the name of it, Joe?
Platform.
Yeah, 6. And we had, was it Platform 16 or Platform something else? Am I saying 14. The name wrong? 14. 2 extra screens, that's fine. And had a wall of screens with all different iterations of Donkey Kong over the years. And I think, if I'm right in saying, we had a big button in the middle of it, and you hit the button and they all changed and scattered around. Was that?
Oh. All right, you're mixing up a couple of things, but that is a good thing. So when we first opened, we wanted to really attack this look of how different Donkey Kong can look on different machines, and there was a special device we had where you could look at all the different versions of Donkey Kong on a split screen, and we liked it so much that when we got into this larger space in Sheffield, we built a massive wall with so many screens on it. And then we had every single version of Donkey Kong playable. Because obviously on some versions, you've literally just got a red splodge and brown rectangles coming down, but the game is still Donkey Kong. And it was at what level does the game stop becoming Donkey Kong? And the answer is never. It's always going to be Donkey Kong, even if it is just a bunch of splodges that look nothing like the original.
Interesting. It's fascinating to hear how one example, specifically with Donkey Kong, is organized into a way that people can appreciate consuming from the very beginning all the way through the existence of it. I know Alex has a pretty unique organization method with all of his games for his house, and it's usually the wherever there's space method is what he uses. But when it comes down to organizing the museum, what other ways do you guys end up organizing the content? Because keeping my library straight on Steam is hard enough, let alone physically placing things around a physical spot.
Mike might be able to jump in on this a little bit, but we very much try to avoid things like being chronological and stuff like that. People kind of expect that, so we kind of theme things in ways to make people almost not have to read the stuff needed. They can look at the shelf and understand what the theme of that section is. And we'll go from everything from printed media to a version that's completely to do with home taping. We've got sections that have the Street Fighter versus Mortal Kombat era, showing like jammer boards and the different console versions and home computer versions. So that's obviously, it was very big in the UK. In comparison, I don't think you had a Commodore 64 in the background there, do you? I can see King from Tekken.
No, I have the Mini downstairs.
Okay. I'm not sure if you got Street Fighter on the Mini. It was something to behold. Yeah, there's so many different things. One's to do with how games obviously lower in value so quickly, especially like sports games like FIFA and things like that end up 25p after 2 years in what we have as CEX, which is the like the second-hand video game store. So we'll have a section based on that, But the main thing that we're getting at is we don't really do things chronologically. We do things by themes.
No, and I think that's part of also like the size of the organization as well. The curators have a lot of freedom to, work on sort of passionate things that they want. And like the bundles idea is a way for us to curate stuff more easily. And like so another one is the Mario versus Sonic, a very, very traditional argument on the internet, but that's gives us a way into looking at video games in a different way. Joe seems to be shaking his head. Oh no.
Yeah, what Sonic?
Well, I'm definitely not going to ask you guys which is better, the Super Nintendo version of Aladdin or the Genesis version. I'm sure you know that question. But before I ask, Donkey Kong, now being historians on video games, how many versions of Donkey Kong are there? Do you know those kind of like facts from over the years off the top of your head, or do you just like
well,
to
it depends. It really depends how specific you want to get. So obviously the game Donkey Kong, as we said, is barrels coming down from a large monkey or brown rectangle in some cases to a little character that jumps over them. So is every game that's called Donkey Kong a version of Donkey Kong, or are games that are called like The King that came out that was exactly the same game? Is that Donkey Kong? And then if so, I still don't know the answer either way. There's loads.
Okay. Well, you know there's a difference, and it's a trick question almost. And preserving these video games, right? Obviously, the boxes like Earthbound, Super Nintendo. If you still have that in a mint condition box, that's $300-400. Or the original Nintendo, the Championships cartridge that just sold for like a couple $100,000 or whatnot. How do you guys preserve games? Do you package them up? When you get something in, do you make sure it's mint before it goes in the museum? Like, tell us about the preserving of the actual physical copies.
Do you want to go mic up and chatting away?
You have. The thing is, you've got way more experience with this directly than I do.
It's because, there's so much that we get where the quick answer is no. We get so many things where sometimes the story of getting the thing is more interesting than the item itself. Like there's definitely a section of things that one of the directors found on someone's driveway next to a bin. It's like going like, we've like this screen that plugged into the back of the old PS1, and it was how things are discarded. So yeah, we definitely have. There's definitely not a level of we need to make sure that's a sealed version. It's not saying that we don't have them. Today I was just sorting out some of the things in the archive and found a sealed version of Jet Set Willy 2 for the Commodore 64. So that was pretty exciting.
So what is probably the coolest thing you have in the museum? Like when you walk in there and you're just like, I'm so proud that we have this here.
It's subjective, isn't it? That's the thing. We've got dev kits.
You personally.
I get very excited about dev kits. Just how crazy they can look. Like the PlayStation 2 dev kit is just a gigantic PlayStation 2, but the PlayStation 3 dev kit was just a massive black box. It just it kind of like it doesn't follow a theme in any way. For example, a friend who I work with there, we together bought a Nintendo DS dev kit, and that's now on display in there. But that's just like a Nintendo DS on a really thick cord going into a blue box that lets you actually plug controllers in. It seems quite exciting. But I get excited on the things that you just go, I've never seen anything like this before. So that's my thing.
Your turn, Michael.
I think the Dolphin emulator kit is also awesome, and I love that we get that. I know I copied your answer here, copied your homework, but I think they're great. I also love the fact that we've got a Magnavox Odyssey. I just love that sort of early tech with lovely wood paneling on the side. So evocative of the 1970s. It's brilliant.
I grew up in the Middle East where every summer we went in the 90s. It was all about Ataris with 100,000 games built in. And there was only 10 unique games named 100 different ways on each one. That was like my knowledge of the old systems. Go ahead. Yeah, Joe.
Seeing as Mikey stole my answer, I'll change mine then if that's all right. So it just seemed a bit too like confident to go, it's one of my own things that's in the museum. But I've got a Sunset Riders arcade machine in there and that's
Ooh,
I'm super
actually
excited about that.
that's my favorite side scroll shooter. And they just re-released on the PlayStation. You can play the 4-player Japanese version and everything.
I hope doing so hasn't lowered the price of mine.
Probably. Well, that's where it's going. But let's talk about a modern game real quick. We actually spoke with a team that you guys have worked with from Team 17 on Narita Boy, and games like Narita Boy that are kind of going back to retro. Have you guys played Narita Boy or checked it out? What do you think?
I've checked it out.
Oh no, go on.
Do you know what? No, I've been talking relentlessly. It's your turn, Mikey.
Okay. Well, actually, I've not played it yet. I've seen the trailer. I've also seen a 30-minute gameplay demo of it. And actually, I didn't think it would be what I ended up seeing, because it's like this sort of Metroidvania style game. And I was coming into it thinking it was like a 2D side scroller with this retro aesthetic, but it's not. And I do love the fact that they've gone for this sort of synthy, nostalgic for the 80s, not really like the 80s. Like it's a contemporary view of how we think the 80s was, that's like inspired by the internet or inspired by popular culture. And Tron, obviously, it smacks you in the face. It's Tron, you know.
All right, so we're talking about arcade games in all different ways and forms. So we just mentioned that there's one favorite one that you have out there, Joe. But what was the first arcade game that everyone played on the call?
My first arcade game. I was from an era where games had names like Car, and that was acceptable. it's like from that age. So the first game I can remember playing was definitely Atari Star Wars with the climbing cab. And I was getting super excited about that because my brother was 10 years older, and he was just hammering it all the time. And now and again, I might get a go, but but I was definitely stronger on the platform side. At Wonder Boy being like the earlier platforms, and Pac-Land. So it kind of from that era of that'll be the first things I was playing. Yeah, first one I bought was Tekken Tag though.
Oh, nice!
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I got Tekken back there.
I've been admiring it like slyly.
Mikey.
The first one that I played was Virtua Striker 2. It was one of these soccer games. Oh, it was great. It was in this cafe, and we went somewhere on holiday. And I think I must have spent the whole holiday just playing over and over Brazil versus France. And it's just so evocative of like that period. It's white gloss cabinet as well. I was looking them up earlier, and they brought me back so hard to my childhood. They're amazing.
All right, to kind of build off of that, then, if there was one cabinet that you could only have one cabinet for the rest of your life, which cabinet would it be? None of these multi-boxes either. I want single titles on these things.
Who would say that? Who would go, one of Pandora's box? No, that's pushing it. I'm going to have to think hard for a sec, but I imagine Mikey's going to be quick.
I've got, I can't say I've got two, but it's a choice between two. So it would be either Time Crisis 2.
Oh, man.
Or it would, and I mean, come on. That's just such
best gun game of all
such
time,
a legacy. Yeah. And, but maybe another sort of memory I have is when I was younger, I spent a whole summer sort of playing House of the Dead 4. So that was the one with the Uzis. I used to shake it to reload. Me and my friends, like every day in the summer, would go to this arcade where I lived and just played it non-stop. So maybe for the bringing back memories, I'd have that one. So you can't beat Time Crisis, though, can you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's to chime in real quick before Mikey steals the show yet again. No, isn't it crazy how we want to play those games at home, but unless you have a CRT, and the technology is starting to catch up with all, there's been some Kickstarters for light guns and all that. I just wish like an Arcade 1-Up or arcade company would come out with some of our favorite gun titles, like a Point Blank Machine, one of my favorites, or a Time Crisis, collection, because you can buy guns for the older systems, and now you have VR, which has some really amazing gun games. But for a lot of us that want to go back and play those old school, like Revolution X or Terminator, there's no way to do it unless you find that actual machine. So, but that brings me back. Time Crisis is actually the first game I could actually beat it on one token, the entire game, part one, without dying once. And I was so obsessed with. Thank you very much. And Double Dragon 1 back in the day. So
Right, Joe.
what about you, Mikey? What are your favorite games? What would be your one arcade game?
Joe.
Mine would be Dance Dance Revolution, by the way, because I have one in my living room. Continue.
All right, Joe. What is your favorite arcade game?
I think you're referring to Joe when you said Mikey, but let's.
Oh, that's sorry, Joe. Yes.
What? Right. Oops. The thing is that any answer I give, I just imagine a lot of people raging, going, "Why didn't he say this?" And the answer might be because I've already got it. So you said I've got 2 point blanks. I've got Time Crisis 1. I've got Gunblade, and I've got obviously Sunset Riders. Got a dancing stage, but I don't play on that much. I've got a Silent Hill arcade machine, which is pretty rare. Yeah, it needs a lot of repair. Initial D. I've got a few racing ones as well. But if I said, look, I'm going to get one, that is such a hard question for me because I just want so many of them. I'm currently chasing actually from a person in America. Has a jammer board for rival schools, and I don't seem to have much in the way of decent fighters, and I'd like to get a rival. I'm saying that while I'm sat next to. I've got I put the GS64 cartridge just next to me. I'm guessing
nice. Well, they're bringing Akira over to Street Fighter V. I'm sure you know. That's cool.
Oh right.
Yeah. So to carry that, actually, an extra question for you, Joe, is say you want a cabinet. You say somebody who's listening to this show and like, hey, I kind of want that cabinet. I want to find it somehow. Do you go through auctions? Do you just go through eBay to try to find it? Do you have a hidden dark web of all these arcade cabinets in someone's basement? Like, what would be the advice you give if somebody wanted to find a specific cabinet in today's world?
You mean give away my tricks?
For me, not the audience.
So in the UK, a lot of the arcades now, especially along the coast, are ticket redemption. It's very hard to find these older ones, and to get them for a decent price, I will actually give away the trick. Is you'll get certain areas that are called like pleasure beaches, which their main income isn't from the arcade. It's from like the rides that they've got going on and like all their food vendors. And their arcades generally have things from the past, so like the Simpsons machines and stuff like that. So, kind of getting in with them, befriending them enough where if they are getting rid of stuff, or if something's broken, that's usually how I'll swoop in. Oh, that's broken, is it? Well, instead of taking it out of the back and burning it, let me take it away in a van, and so that's generally how I've got most of my stuff. Is just waiting for it to break.
You know,
I was the man with the van.
Yeah, I was on YouTube, and now there's like a YouTube show called Arcade Pickers, which is kind of like guys going through America, finding old school arcades and vinyls and panels. So, but speaking of that, right, in America, at least where I live in Orlando, Florida, there's barcades now everywhere. Bars mixed in with retro lighting, and then old school arcade games, and most of them are original. Are they as popular now in the UK? Like, I think that's a comeback, because once we all get out of COVID, people want to interact with each other, and there's no better way than one-on-one fighting games or shooting games together. How popular are barcades over in the UK?
They're definitely on the uptake. I got invited to a stag do a year ago. I think it was in January, just before lockdown, and that ended up in a barcade. I ended up being a bit too snobby about it, going, "Oh, I think you'll find that's a fat screen TV that it shouldn't have turtles on," and stuff like that. So I was being a bit too uppity about it. But they did have an original Outrun 2, so I played that for most of the night. But yeah, they're popping up everywhere. There's a lot in the way of video game cafes. It's like like in the UK, they go, maybe we should drink tea and play games instead. So they we just living up to stereotypes. If you want to draw somebody in a top hat playing Donkey Kong and drinking the tea, that's us.
That's cool. And Mikey, we're obviously through COVID, but like, do you go to them, or do you think just getting all the arcades for your house is the way to go now?
I wish I would have any room in my flat at all to fit anything. I think once COVID's all what can you say about COVID to say it's all said and done? Like, it'd be nice for everyone to get back out there. But like we have in the UK, we've as sort of Joe was saying, we have this like sort of amusement, pleasure beach culture, especially on like the seaside towns and stuff. And so obviously they've been shut for the last year, but that's like they are. I would say they're like Barcades already. You go there, you can go get your hot dogs and your chips, and you go bowling. You can also go and play some on like some classic arcade games. You also go for a bit of bingo, big gambling while you're at it. So that we've got those hopefully ready just to reopen when this is all said and done.
It's not bowling, may I add. It's bowlingo. So it's like got one hole in the ball, and the ball's kind of about that big. You just clout it up the lane.
I mean, in the 90s, most of the fighting games I played were inside mall arcades, bowling alleys. Those were the good days. But now Barcades kind of bring it all, and it's different. You don't like today's world of kids. If they had to pay a quarter or a token every time they wanted to play a game, that'd be insane. And now you pay $10 to get Endorphin. You get to play it to your heart's content. And kind of speaking of that, because you guys are retro collectors, this question might be offensive to you. Do you have any of these like multi arcades, like a Pandora's box? Because I actually review them myself, and it's not the same, right? But for somebody who might have a small flat, or I'm in a townhome, it's like I want to get an all-in-one and play through all my memories rather than just get all these separate machines. What do you guys think of those kind of machines? Are you happy that they're at least popular now because it brings people back to the arcades?
I don't want to name and shame the person I know with this, but a friend of mine has a laser tag, and in there he's got a Pandora's box machine. And I've always told him, never just have the menu available. Just disable all the games except one. So when you turn it on, that one game starts up and it just feels a bit more authentic. I hate the idea of coming in and seeing a list of games. It just seems... It's probably why I didn't really like the... do you know the old Nintendo machines where you kind of pay for 5 minutes on the NES? Yeah. It's probably why I wasn't fond of those. Just I didn't like the idea of having the choice. And then how would you start a game like Mario 3? Like, and I'll get 5 minutes on Mario 3, please.
Yeah, and Contra and original Mega Man. So yeah, what about you, Mikey? Like, because you have a flat, and a lot of people with small spaces, they might want to just pick out one machine. Would you get one, or you're against them too?
I'm not against them at all. I'm all for the sort of dream machine on a USB. You just plug it in, you can play. And especially when it's so difficult to access these older titles, especially arcade games and machines. So difficult to find original. So what better way to experience them in a small flat?
Future generation.
Exactly.
And they make like Fire Sticks now. You just plug in the stick to your TV with 2 PlayStation 4 controllers, and it's just crazy to see how far it's come and how we were as kids at arcades spending hundreds of dollars to play this one game, and now you spend $100 and you can play 2,000 different games. It's just it's still weird to me, but I prefer it as well. Last question for you guys. This has been awesome to talk about arcade games. What is the biggest piece of like arcade history that neither of you have that's impossible to get that you wish you can get? It's kind of like the one arcade machine question, but in video games as a whole, not arcades, what would be that one piece of history you wish you owned?
For me, it's a very low-hanging fruit, and you've probably heard this a million times before, but it would definitely be the old Atari Star Wars.
Oh, no, Arcade One Up makes those now too.
I just want the proper original one with the kind of cigarette stink about it, and just to have that age behind it as well. It'd be nice to be. That's probably for me though.
Mikey?
Oh, this is such a... I've been thinking about this question for ages, and I just can't think of a bloody good answer. And I feel like... I know. I feel...
A cassette tape refill for a Casio Loopy. Do you know the Casio Loopy?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I can't get them tapes. I bought one of those consoles. I was like, yeah, I'm going to print a dress. But no.
Oh... I tell you what's been difficult for me to get, but it's not rare. Well, it might be rare. I want one of those PS TVs. For years, I've been trying to find. You know, so
I
you can
have
stream your
one. You
Vita.
just, I'll email you after. Someone can prove it. So if you really need it, yeah, no, they're not bad because they're good Vita and PlayStation 1 players. I play Suikoden on it all the time. But are they really that hard to get? They're like $30-$40 online. You can find it. So
It's a different world over this side of the pond.
Yeah.
Like, there's like things that you're
that's
going.
true.
Oh, you picked up an arcade cab for $200. All right, well over here it might be a different ball. Different ball. What's in your cabinet there? Do you have your table cab?
That is the 12-in-1 Street Fighter Arcade 1-Up coffee cab. So it comes with the Street Fighters. It came with Strider, Final Fight, Darkstalkers. And I think they're starting to release those overseas, but hopefully it comes your way because I did grow up in the Middle East where back then we had like Super Sidekicks and King of Fighters, and that was it. No Street Fighters, Mortal Kombat, and stuff like that. But dude, guys, it was actually really wonderful to have on. We can probably talk about this separately. We'll keep in touch and set up a Discord sometime and just whatever you need help finding, if I can find it over here, I'll help you out. So
Vice versa.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having us.
No problem. Kyle, you want to end this show?
Yeah, if you guys can help me find my gold my gold Ocarina of Time cartridge my mom sold at a garage sale when I was 12, I'd be super stoked about that. But besides that, thanks everyone for tuning into the DreamHack download this week, where we discovered all kinds of amazing things about the arcade world and preserving video game history. Join us next week when we dive in again for another topic. Until then, see you next time.